I am Andrew Leduc,
That's what I
aka
love.
Mr. Mallard. And join me as always, Mr. Chief of Morale himself, Bud Copeland. Bud, how are you this evening before we get into
So the point being is good golfers are a fucking dime a dozen. And we saw it in full swing that the line of demarcation between...
here? Are you ready, Bud? Are you ready for the players? Are you ready to make money? Are you ready to try to beat me?
I didn't do my homework this week.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Divots and Pivots. Jesus, Pivots, episode 27. We are, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Jeez. We're talking the Genesis Scottish
Here we
Open
go.
this week.
Here we go. Start it up.
Yeah,
Open the show. Here we go, Bob.
You know what it was? I was pulling up
one.
I was pulling up the Rumble comments so that I could make sure I was paying attention to people as they chatted with the show.
That's fair. They're gonna say you can do it. That's all it's gonna read right now.
Yeah, I got
go
distracted.
get him, Andy. Does anybody call you Andy?
No, dude. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. No, I hate when people call me Andy. It is not allowed.
And by the way,
And
I
you know
beat
what-
you by 60, not 20 this week. Just
Yeah, okay. So
there
you
was
got
a little
you
pre-show shit talking that had to be resolved there.
so you cut into the season lead I have. Congratulations.
Yeah, I played
but
Nate Lashley for the first time in my life.
and he did good. He did good.
Car run good.
Yeah, but no. To get back to the Andy comment, most Andrews I've talked to cannot stand being called Andy. So just keep that in mind when you talk to an Andrew. Do not assume it's all right to call him Andy because most of us do not like it.
Andy Ogletree, who live golfer, Georgia Tech guy, USAM winner, he prefers Andy, but that's because he put it out there. But point taken.
Yes.
My government name is Michael, and growing up, some people tried to call me Mikey, and it was like, ooh, Mike was in a stretch.
It's just not. It's just not all right sometimes. But look, this was a big day in golf today. We had the long-awaited Senate hearings for the. Let's be clear once again, the PGA and PIF merger. Although this is now starting to look a lot like a live buyout by the PGA here as well. Not a buyout because they're not the one spending the money, but in the end, they're pretty much taking over control of the live golf tour. So big day. There was a lot of tidbits coming out. Do you have any opening thoughts before we dive into the legalities and the headlines on golf in general?
Today was a big day for people who have strong opinions about this. My opinion is we still don't know anything. Like, we didn't learn anything today. So there's an agreement in place to do an agreement. This was for some people to get some clicks and likes and do some virtue signaling. And Jimmy Dunn was great, up there sparring with those guys. But it's like, okay. And I think Senator Ron Johnson, which, what a great fucking name. Just Ron Johnson, man. Anyway, he kind of said it. He was on Barstool, and then, he does this hearing today. He's like, everybody got to say what they wanted to say. It got out there, but like, we need to actually see what this agreement's going to look like. All we have is a quote unquote framework. Now, there's the shit on social media, 7 things that we learned today.
Sure.
So first of all, Rory,
which are just buzzwords, by the way. It's just same as clickbait. The just being put out there for buzzwords.
And I'm not above it. I clicked it and read it and
No.
argued with every single one. Rory, I wanted to open up with your thoughts on this one. Rory, finding out that Rory talked to PIF, or I don't know if it was Yasser himself.
It was from what I read in the article. He talked to him directly.
And some of the notes I read were he made it abundantly clear he's speaking for himself and only himself, and that every once in a while he would say, I'm pretty confident that Tiger would feel this way too, or he would drop those in there.
Yeah,
it sounded to me it was almost like an unofficial litmus test with the players to find out, should we even continue with what we're doing, because it's going to eventually get to you all, and if everybody revolts, then we're all fucked. Like, what do you think? Kind of thing. Because there's this thing still has to be like voted on. I guess there's like
And so that's the point. That's the point I wanted to bring based off of your first comment about we didn't really learn much other than that this is just an agreement to have an agreement. Because you're right. Because what we did, which I think is big, because what we did learn is that the player council still gets a final vote on whether this goes through or not, which makes perfect sense as to why a meeting with Rory was requested, because Rory is one of the few players on that committee. He's the head of the committee. His sway and word is going to go a long way on whether this gets passed by the players of the PGA or not. So it makes perfect sense that he was kind of in the crosshairs to have a private meeting with the PIF and cross some of these bridges. I don't think it was really about getting a sense on whether the players were going to rebel. I think it was straight up to get the feel for Rory.
You think it was much more just like softening the ground, like, hey guys, this is coming.
Not even the ground, just softening Rory. I think they just wanted to sell it to Rory because they knew that if Rory could get up in front of the rest of the Players Council and make the argument for them that this made sense, that was their best avenue into this.
So what about the part? I love this. All the proposals, and everybody's losing their fucking mind about it. But the idea that just the notion that Tiger would agree to play 10 tournaments besides the majors and not on the PGA Tour. He's tied. The fact that somebody was like, I guess in the world of, we're just spitballing here. Like, what would be really cool if we could get out there and offer, but the idea that they were going to get him to do 10 live events and then own a team. Well, it's ironic because he announced him and Roy, that's exactly what the two of them are doing, right? They're running this TGL league. And so who knows, maybe there was some IP stolen there and they took an idea and they flipped it. No, but
I'm not above thinking that, because think of the timing of the announcements and the timing of the meeting with Rory and with the PIF. These meetings were going back to November and December of last year that this was being talked about. So all this bullshit about the only 4 people in the world knew this was happening. Load of bullshit. We know that now. Conversations were being had. They were just keeping their mouths shut, rightfully so.
Conversations were had. Things were said. Tomato.
Yeah.
So my reaction is I don't really care. It was fun. It was kind of cool to see golf on Capitol Hill, I guess, because I was a poli-sci guy and I'm still kind of a wonk in that world. I like to that's my blood sport, is to follow politics. And so it's fun to see this kind of intersection of worlds that you don't, they have the tech CEOs up there, every other week testifying on something, right? And then in between there's always the tear jerking causes that get the spotlight. There's people up there every day, but and to see a guy like Jimmy Dunn sit in that position and just kind of hold, kind of let it be known, you're not going to question my integrity. You're not going to question my patriotism. I am a businessman. We were in a tough spot. This was, a timing issue. This was, a quick, easy solution. And also to outline, we're not giving up golf to the Saudis, quote unquote. We're going to maintain, every step along the way. Now, I do ask the question, what's the difference between the CEO and the chairman, right? Yasser's still going to be the chairman while Jay's going to be the CEO, and PGA Tour is going to hold the majority of everything. It does sound like there was some good faith back and forth, and that's a stretch of a term to use, I guess, in a deal like this. But they're trying to make it dead clear that we hear what your concerns are, and we're not, we're not here for that. Now, there are people who, these are the folks that I like to have fun with, who are just in an uproar that we're even engaging with this person at all. And they have no problem sitting there going to TD Garden and watching the Celtics, or turning on ESPN and seeing the Lakers, which NBA has been in bed with China for God. This game is just too easy to play, right?
And the whole law transference, every aspect.
So there's two. So my point is, inside the golf world, I think this is a big deal. Outside, it's a very quick little boop in the pulse of geopolitical, positioning. That's not lost on people when they watch it, because they're not going to actually stick around. Questions I like to ask people: are you not going to watch the Masters next year, the U.S. Open?
Well, of course.
What are you afraid of? What's the fear here? How is the game going to change?
So now, you personally, I'm curious about this, because I just thought about this because it annoyed me slightly, but not crazy. I'm not up in arms about this, but it's just a thought I had. Are you at all annoyed that the politicians and these senators, governors, whoever the senators on the Senate committee, not governors, are in a way just using golf for a political stance right now?
No,
in
couldn't
a
care
in a
less.
time that is approaching election season. It almost feels too served up on a silver platter to go golf, served up on a perfect tee for these politicians to have something that they can rile up their base and their voters at the perfect time for them. Like
If it wasn't
it
this, would be
just
something else. I mean,
well, yes,
it doesn't.
exactly it would be, but like this feels like something that maybe a year after the election or a year ago where the election wasn't really on people's minds, maybe wouldn't make it all the way to a public Senate
It
hearing.
doesn't bother me because it's okay. Multiple things can be true at the same time.
Yeah,
and yes, they're gonna any politician. You got to get reelected, so you have to speak to your constituents. You got to position yourself. You got to take opportunities. So when people get like, oh, they're doing this for politics. What do you expect them to do? That's their business. And I mean, they're and whether you want to use the word exploiting or just leveraging. So you can't blame a dog for barking. You can't blame a duck for quacking. Nope. You can't blame a politician for politicking. That's kind of the lead into it. The second part for me is I'm trying to wrap my head around, because I was the first one to say Congress is going to get off their keister and do something, and then I'm looking back at myself going, well, hold on just a second. We're talking about billions, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars down, of international commerce. If it weren't golf and it was any other business entity, they would take a look. And now, the fact that it's the Saudis, maybe this is almost like hazing, right? Because I do go back to, we have diplomatic relationships with Saudi Arabia. We got military over there. We do a shit ton of business with them. They own such a slice of all the pies everywhere. And I'm not to, just overlook the genuine moral and ethical conversation. That's a separate, kind of thing here. But to think that they're not going to take an opportunity to signal to their constituents, and then also that to be naive enough to think that they shouldn't be looking at this. Of course they should.
They have to. It's just made it so much more into the public eye than most. I think
it was premature. I think it was just premature because today was for show, and I think that's what you're getting at. It's like we didn't know
so many buzzwords were used today.
And there was so much virtue signaling and, all sorts of shit going on, and that's fine. But I guess at the end of the day, I will say that does bother me that it was kind of just not productive, kind of like Senator Johnson was saying, where let's let them see what this deal is going to look like before we all start, getting, it's almost like we're expecting something, and maybe this falls apart. There's so many things that could freaking happen on a deal this size.
It's simple. Enough players on the committee say no, and it's simple. It's done in its tracks. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be more complicated than that, but on the surface, that's the way it's set up to be.
And they're not idiots. They're talking about equity stakes in this new entity. They know what they're doing. They know the generation they're talking to, and like the next wave of compensation style. So it's going to be a big thing for them to figure out. Is it a bonus pool, and like, are we done with the PIP and the popularity contest? Are we going to go back to maybe some metric based bonus? Maybe it's shit like, you do get bonus at the end of the year if you're leading or top 5 in statistical categories. Like there's some sort of other way to objectify and reward this game. And they're just going to slice up whatever gigantic effing pie the PIF wants to cut a check for. And they're going to slice up as much of it as they can to keep these people happy, because yes, at the end of the day, without them, I'm not, and again, I'm not naive and stupid enough to think that you could just get rid of John Rahm and Rory and Jordan and Justin and Ricky, and within a year we would have the next round. I said in the intro, the line of demarcation between golf, great golfers and elite golfers is so thin. And if you get rid of those elites, it's not like it's next man up. They automatically fill in. These are also whole champions, head to toe, inside and out. The brain game is tuned or it's out of whack. So plenty of Joe Schmucks can, go out and shoot 63 at their local course. There's a lot of those guys out there. And even they would admit the difference between them who are comfortable at home. They might go out and play in some amateur stuff, but these tour guys are just operating at a slightly higher level because it is their career and they are the best of the best of the best. So and I'm curious to see what happens moving forward to see if whatever compensation style they come up with becomes copyable, if that makes sense, for other sports to be taking a look at.
Well, to one of your points there, one of the other things we did learn is that there is a proposal for the PAF to provide. There is a proposal for the PAF to provide, I guess I am sorry fund or whatever or a payday fund, if you want to call it, to the players that stayed loyal to the PGA in return for a path back to the PGA and world ranking points for the live golfers.
The world ranking points, I kind of want to shake a stick. I
still can't believe we're hung up on the fucking world ranking points. I can't believe we're still hung up on that. I'm sorry, but I still have a hard time believing that the majority of the guys on Live Tour who are bitching about it actually care about the world ranking points at this point. They have their bag of money. They got it. And in the end here, they're going to get the best of both worlds. I don't believe that they actually care about what their ranking in the world is. They have everything they need.
No, they care. They care about the role it plays of them getting into majors. Because if you look,
they're going to get into them unless you're Sergio Garcia and you can't qualify locally, but whatever.
Wow. Shots fired earlier.
Why not? I don't know what early
on El Nino.
There we go.
I have been going down a rabbit hole of Open Championship lore. We'll get there. But these proposals that were out there, again, that's the Rory and Tiger owning live teams and becoming live players.
Yeah.
They're
not going to become live players. Let's be clear there. They're not going to play on the live.
Playing 10 events. That was a fun thing though. It's a stat that always boggles my mind. Tiger's got so many of these, right? And it's like I saw the one the other day that like Scotty Scheffler would have to stay at number 1 for the next 12 years consecutively to match Tiger's streak. And it's just those kind of reminders.
It's wild.
It's nuts. But he is the 3rd winningest golfer on the European Tour.
That's insane.
But that's because they recognize the majors and the World Golf Championships. He's got 15 and 18, so he's 33 right there. Seve's got 50 wins. Bernard Longer's got 42.
Scotty Scheffler also has 5 straight top 4 finishes. Do you realize how insane that is? And with all things considered, and I don't mean this lightly or negatively or to lessen what he did, but he's done it kind of quietly. I feel like there's been other storylines that have overshadowed what he's done in the last year and a half in the golf world.
A couple of those tournaments, he hung around the cut line, or he had to barely get to the weekend, and then all of a sudden he just steps on the gas. Well, there was that stat floating around after the Memorial, I think it was, where he led the field in strokes gained approach and was last in strokes gained putting, and right there was kind of or proximity, one or the other. But Scotty Scheffler is, I say, playing in Texas. We're going to get into the Scottish Open talk here in a couple minutes, but back to these proposals. I was about to go right down the Scottish Open.
We were going to go off on a tangent there.
The Greg Norman thing is the one that Tiger spoke, right? There's no way this moves forward with him in place. He's the first one that's got to go. So we knew that was going to happen. Greg out there saying like live strong and we're going to be back next year and we're not going anywhere. It's
no one cares what you have to say, Greg. We all know the writing on the wall.
But it's the athletic director coming out and being like, we have full confidence in coach and he's our guy moving forward. And we have no intention of announcing his firing until Monday. And so everybody, like you said, everybody knew it was about to happen. So back to the top, because it's been 20 minutes of bullshit. That's how that just sounded. That's kind of how it sounded on Capitol Hill today. It was, I think it was a lot of one-way statements. And then just, I felt like at moments there were questions that were asked that I was just like, why are you asking them to defend this? Just take the curiosity approach, let it come. Let's see where this goes.
It's simple.
I don't know how to square the moral argument with the practical argument. And I think that frustrates me.
Yeah, and I don't think you can. I think it's just forever going to be a tug and pull there. But it's simple when it comes to these public hearings. With these public hearings on any matter in government, like you said earlier in the show, they're never productive. You never learn anything out of nothing ever gets done
Well,
out of them because the public
all the real
hearings are
work
there.
is already done before they walk in there.
Exactly. The public hearings are there for one thing, and the public hearing is there for everybody to posture and showboat. It's what it's about. And that's all this was. Everybody got to say the buzzwords they wanted, make the statements they wanted. Everyone got a turn speaking nice and, cordial to each other. Here, there, done, 2 hours in and out. And then they released the article and the statements afterwards with all the juice in it. Like we could have done without the damn TV.
Now we have skipped over some of the more salient details. Like one of the big takes is that the PGA Tour was essentially in between a rock and a hard place. They're holding
Yes.
they're holding a knife and they're going up against a bazooka. It wasn't going to be fair. And the PIF had no intention of backing off because with a $700 billion fund. I mean, they could just slice away for the next 10 years and I'm not saying pick off the talent, but just exhaust the PGA Tour.
Just legally, the legal arguments. That was their PGA's biggest reason to back down was to just be done with the legalities.
And I guess the kind of back and forth last year when this started about if a deal doesn't happen now, then it looks like they're just gonna, like you said, put their knee on our throat and just watch us slowly die. So that said, I saw a take by somebody and it really kind of took me back. And it was like, basically it was like, I'm not, sorry, not sorry, but the PGA Tour did this to themselves. They've been arrogant for so many years and they went down that road. And at first I was kind of like, what? And I just don't understand what I would love to have followed up with is, what do you mean? What do you mean they've been arrogant? Did they not issue you press credentials early on in your career and you're butthurt about it? Or do you think that because you have to be confident in your product, in your future, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes you do have to pivot in life, especially when you're in an unwinnable or untenable situation. So it was a little bit, I would say, the taste was kind of like, okay. But,
we got that.
I don't get that they were arrogant. They've just been arrogant for so long. Now, maybe they
I don't think it's
updated like player compensation stuff, or like we've been talking about the digital media rights. And can we talk about that? And maybe, create some more, because we are smarter. We can always further better business practices and everything we do. But the whole, I didn't understand it. Again, I don't know if I agree or disagree. I just don't understand where that comes from.
Here's the comparison I can draw here is that, I don't necessarily think that the PGA Tour was arrogance, probably the wrong word. What I think they were they were just slow to change because they were so convinced that the way they've been successful for so long was still going to work. The same way, we're going to cross sports here and draw the comparison to Bill Belichick. He even now, faced with needing to change in order for this team to be his current team to be successful, whether it's on defense or offense, he still in the media will sit there and say, "Yeah, but we won this many years ago. We won all this over the last 20 years." Yeah, that's great. You're not wrong. Just like the PGA, was successful for many, many years and was a great path for players to make a professional move. But it just became time for the PGA to change, and the Live just expedited that expedited that probably by about 5 years, I'd say. But I think these changes were coming eventually. So that's why I don't want to use the word arrogant. I think it just sped up the timeline.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. We also, I guess they didn't have the money they thought they did when they started talking about like the PIP fund. And I think they also just knew you can't cobble together through corporate partnerships the kind of ammo it was going to take to win the day. I say win the day, but keep the status quo. So
yes,
it does open the can of worms of the bigger talk about, when people say the Saudis are going to take over golf. I would love to understand a little further.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
I don't understand. Now, I did make this prediction. You watch, the tour championship might be in Saudi Arabia in the next 10 years.
Look,
There might,
changes like that
or
are
they might
probably
add a
coming.
fifth major or something like that, a quote unquote global major or something.
Or a part of Tiger and Rory's league is going to be a like 1 week's going to be like a live PGA face off or something. There's going to be some sort of mix and match here. People need to be ready for it to be coming in some sort of form. There's going to be face offs. There's going to be blending of the two tours. It's going to happen, but it's not going to be for the full season. It's
I
going to
think
be
Liv's
picked
just
and
gonna
choose
die.
here and there.
I think they're just going to hang up Liv and just say thanks for the ride.
Well, I'm talking short term. I think long term, you're right, 100%. I'm just talking in the short term here, as they go on believing they're going to survive.
The other idea is instead of making it for the elite, you go the other way and you make it an opportunity tour. Another kind of like.
See, I think there's value in that. I do.
Yeah,
I think there could be some value in that.
And maybe it is the. Here we go. If it becomes relegation, so if you finish outside the top 125, and so you take that kind of middle crop that they do work with in the year end, the people who are from 126 and to 175 on the PGA Tour and like the top 25,
Yep.
or numbers 26 through 50 of the Corn Ferry, and I guess there's some opportunities there. Take those guys and put them on the Live Tour for the year, and have like 10 guaranteed cards out of it or something. There's an idea, but at the end of the day, they weren't making money, and I don't know if taking away talent is then all of a sudden going to turn Live into a money maker, but it could stick around for that reason.
Well, and that does kind of these opportunities that you just laid out that I do think would be beneficial to the game of golf and to the structure of it all. It does kind of take away from the whole idea, like the base idea of what Live is, and that it's supposed to be bigger, louder than everything else when it comes to golf. And so losing the star power out of Live would kind of take away from it being that experience because less people would care, quite frankly. Not to downplay what those other guys in those rankings you just said are doing with their professional careers, but no one's going out there to see them in that sense. No artist is gonna say yes to that event for playing the after tournament concert, like we've been seeing. Like those little things would start to trickle down, which would lead to what we
should have stuck around for Diplo. We really should.
No, fuck Diplo, whatever. So okay. So do you have another point on the live stuff? Because I have like a one last semi.
Yes, actually, I have a question for you.
Relevant point.
Does Matty Wolf have a drinking problem?
So that's I'm glad you brought this up because I've been annoyed by that whole scenario between him and Brooks Koepka. Because on one hand, part of me is like, okay, we don't know what is going on within that. And this is where it is different on Live Tour when it comes to golf. We're not used to seeing a team aspect for golf, and obviously their team is taking that to heart. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes with that team. So maybe this was Brooks Koepka's last kind of last stand to get through to Matt Wolff is to be public about him. Matt Wolff obviously did not take it well, and I don't blame him because I think if that was what Brooks was trying to do, I think the way he did it was just a little bit much. Like to where it just comes off as too offensive and not enough constructive. If that's what he was going for, if he was going for constructive,
the coach that sometimes goes to the media just literally talks shit about a player, blah blah blah,
yeah.
to kind of be like, listen,
one of two ways.
Yeah. So, and the reason I mention that is because I know he has a history with taking breaks from golf, mental health related issues. Yes. And I mentioned that on the golf course. The guy I was playing with was like, no. He's like, I heard it's been alcohol the whole time, which wouldn't be the first time a substance abuse, became the way of talent. But that's why I was just curious if you had seen any scuttlebutt, out there on the blogosphere, because I agree in that it wasn't for my taste.
Yeah.
But then again, the guy who's over here saying two things can be true at the same time, and maybe it did need to be said, or maybe Brooks is just like, listen, that he's very clear that he's that kind of dude that like there's two types of people in this world, winners and losers. Which one do you think? Like that's, it's a binary system. You're either a champion and you want it, or you're a loser and you don't. I do think there's a lack of empathy in that approach to think that.
See, and this is kind of where I had the issue with it, because what we saw, the version of Brooks Koepka we saw on Full Swing was when
vulnerability.
It was when he was at his lowest and his vulnerability. And out of the things he was saying, I got the impression that if someone did this to him in that time, was that I've given up on like another player, not us in the media, none of us, we mean nothing to him, but one of his peers, one of his close peers, whatever person you pick to draw the comparison to being a teammate, if one of them went publicly and said they gave up on him and they just can't deal with him basically anymore, I'm not sure Brooks would have handled that all well from what we saw in full swing. Now, he's obviously grown. He's come around. It's been over a year. He's been doing great. So I don't think that's the case now. But for someone who I don't think would have handled it well, I'm a little surprised that he went that road against somebody else.
I love that he's third in the Ryder Cup rankings. He's only played two qualifying events.
It's because when he's over here, he's killing it.
Jesus. And our boy Keegan Bradley is sitting right outside the top 6. Even if not, he'll probably get a captain's pick. Spieth will get a captain's pick.
Yeah, I can see that.
Young, and I'd say probably Ricky.
I would say,
how do you not take Ricky this year?
I'd say Ricky's too hot right now. If we're talking captain's pick, Ricky over Cam Young every day right now. We'll see what he does this week. We'll get to him here in just a few minutes. The last point I wanted to bring up, because it did make news, but obviously the Live Golf news today and the PGA news kind of overshadowed it. But Jay Moynihan's making his return to his position with the PGA at the head of it all here. So the one question I want to ask you here is, obviously, I'm hoping Jay the best health-wise, whatever it was. The question I asked, because it's kind of a question I've been asking myself, and I'm not really sure how I land on it yet, so I need you to convince me one way or the other here. I'm not saying Jay wasn't sick.
I am. No, I'm just kidding. My conspiracy hat's on. I'm
not saying he wasn't sick, but the timing of his multi-week hiatus seemed too strategically perfect from a PR standpoint to where I'm saying he might have just had a cold and they took advantage of, hey, let's blow this up and you need a few breaks away because we got to get you out of the spotlight because you are taking weight. Because it was like days after he was taking the worst heat that it was, oh, I'm sick, I need to step away. It almost felt like a possible preemptive resigning. I would not have been surprised if that. I don't think that should be what happened.
Fitzgerald 2-week suspension, and then you come around on Monday and it's
so I don't think that should have been what happened. But if after these few weeks that he's had off, it came back that he was out of the job, it wasn't going to surprise me because that's what this all felt like. It felt like they were hiding him.
I do think they were hiding him, but I think it was for cause, meaning. So the most obvious, okay, not the most obvious, but taking them at their word, or even trying to go beyond that and thinking of the most optimistic. The man just, swallowed the biggest jagged pill, stuffed with dog shit of his entire life.
Yes.
And he might have just been exhausted, like genuinely. And it's one of those scenarios where, and not the way that, folks just kind of be like, I need a break. I need a weekend away.
No. Like where it actually physically affects you to where you're depressed, anxious, all of that stuff.
Yeah. Like, you're sitting in a team meeting and all of a sudden the boss looks over and they just look at you and it's like, you need to just like take 2 weeks off. Like you're not fired, but like you're working, you're going to kill yourself if you keep this up. Could have been that.
It could have been. I'm willing to accept that. Yeah.
But it also could have been maybe the deal was that like, okay, I'm going to go out there. I'll be the first one through the wall, so to speak. But then I'm going to step aside for a while and let you fuckers clean this up, because that was another thing too. Because remember, I don't know if it was talked about much in the hearings because I was tuning in and out. I do have a JOB, or what I lovingly refer to as a future former 9 to 5. But he wasn't kind of at the beginning of this. This again, what goes back to Earler or whatever the guy's name is, the chairman of the PGA, Jimmy Dunn, and then contacts with Yasser, and somebody pointed out that Jimmy Dunn has.
That's one of the things we learned today.
How about the Augusta membership and the RNA membership for Yasser? That was one of the proposals, or part
Oh,
of the proposal.
how did I miss that in what I read? I missed that part. I
That
did
was
not know
one of
that.
the one of the many kind of, that was up there with Tiger and Rory owning live teams, right? But it may
Yeah.
be
Okay.
though, because he is now all of a sudden going to be a quote unquote power broker. Augusta National gets to do whatever the hell they want to do, because I don't think,
They
I
were
don't know if they'll be,
always going to be able to.
it's they're like the Illuminati. There's a
Yeah.
power structure there and a network there that I don't think even the kingdom can take down. Don't.
Well, I mean, it's clear already. They had gotten away with not allowing female memberships only up until how many years ago? Like 5? Well, when did
Condi
that
Rice.
change?
It was Condi Rice, and I want to say it was 2012.
Okay, so longer than 5, but still, like
No,
that's crazy.
your point is well taken. I was trying to flex my golf nerddom. But I don't think it's out of, it's not out of the realm of possibility. The RNA, I would think, might be no, I don't know. Maybe it's a new, who the fuck knows?
That one's more interesting. Like Augusta, I get because you get just the status of being
RNA
able to be at that
membership
course.
RNA memberships are coveted. It's a status.
Sure, but I feel like that's a
almost like
status
being
that's
knighted.
more. I feel like that's a status that's more just known for the elites, like amongst the elites. You know what I mean? Which is still
Right.
something obviously of value. But
Yasser manages a
any
$700 billion wealth fund. I think we can call the guy.
yeah, I think he's elite.
I like that he's into golf, because there also could be the fringe benefits of. So they're talking about pumping money into social issues. They're talking about growing the
Sure.
game. They basically are saying, like, on top of golf, there's all these other things that you're trying to do. Like, here's money. I'm leery of that, and it's not lost on me that the human rights stuff, and they the way that they treat. But I also ask the question of how many battles do you have to fight on how many fronts, on how many people's behalf? What can I continue to watch golf without having an overwhelming, like, I go back to, I'll watch anything golf related shit. The U.S. Adaptive Open, I'm trying to find that. I don't think anybody's streaming it, but if somebody knows, holler at me. But I'm going to watch the 4 majors. I'm going to watch the players. I'm going to watch whatever tournament they come out with this, because as long as it's world-class golfers competing at world-class venues for 72 holes, like a bunch of grown-ups.
Hell, did you see the finish of the DP World Tour on Sunday?
I did not. How did you scoop me on this?
Well, they went to what, 3 or 4 playoff holes, I think it was, and I'm not even gonna attempt to say their names, but in the end, it was the tournament, and I can't even get the name of the tournament right. It was a Danish tournament. A Dane won. It hadn't happened yet, so like that. It was
the Højgaard. Rasmus
Højgaard, or whatever you say. Yeah, however you say his name.
He is going to be a killer in the Ryder Cup.
So, and he's in the field this week. We'll get to that in just a little bit. I promise, for all you who are sticking around for our picks. I know we're already at 37, almost 38 minutes. We haven't talked picks yet. We're going to get there. I promise you. He's in the field this week, but
we still got to talk about the Barbasol.
This was a fantastic finish to a tour that not many people actually catch on TV here in the States. I feel like just because of timing or whatever. It went to multiple playoff holes. The first playoff hole, one of the guys puts it in the green side bunker on the backside of the green on an uphill lie. Looks like an impossible shot with a short sided green, and he somehow hits a perfect bunker shot to put it within, I don't know, it was like 5 feet of the hole, and it left it short of the hole too. So I don't know how he pulled it off. It was great. They pushed the hole, go back up to the tee. They come back down. The other guy then hits an identical shot into the bunker to the same exact spot. Then I'm like, okay, there's no way this is going to happen twice. He hits the same exact bunker shot within just 5 feet of the hole, gets it close. They push it again and go on so far, and then in the end, Højgaard, the Danish, wins in the end. But it was fantastic golf. If you're just a golf fan, it was great back and forth. There's world-class golf out there at your fingertips wherever you want.
I'm scrolling it on the YouTube. You weren't lying; those bunker shots were nuts. No, I like
they weren't just uphill lies; they were uphill in the wrong direction of the green. Like so, when you're talking uphill below your feet, also coming at an angle up, like it was just impressive golf.
These guys are good. Him and his brother Nikolai Højgaard.
Yes, I saw that his twin brother came out to celebrate with him. He's a twin. Yeah. Did you know that?
I did. I've been
Yes.
big on the Huygaard train for a while now. That's the most DP World Tour I think we've ever talked. I had the Tiger Fact earlier. You're bringing up weekend finishes. Watch out. We're going to be taking over Madrid here soon. No, Nacho, the guy that he was playing, is one of my favorite names out there.
Yes, that was him.
Like
Thank you.
Nacho
Yes.
Elvira or something like that. Does sound like a
Yes.
big kid from Texas, but he's a Spaniard. But yeah, no, look out for the Huygaards when we go to Rome later this year for the Ryder Cup.
100%. 100%. But look, let's get into this. Let's get a quick break here. We'll hear from Underdog Fantasy here, and then these last 20 or so minutes, we promise we're going to hit you with the fantasy picks right now coming in for the Genesis Scottish Open. So stick around. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code DIVPIV to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
Gingerbread's ready for the Genesis Scottish Open this week, and look, it was a perfect timing to talk DP World Tour before this because we have a lot of DP guys in this field this week. So if you follow the DP World Tour and you're watching us, you're going to know some familiar names that we're going to talk about this week. I feel
if you follow at This Buds for You on Instagram, you're going to know why, Andrew, and that's because this is a co-sanctioned event between the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. This is the year 2 of that partnership. Or that recognition, and it's agreements like that were kind of symbolic in them saying to possible competitors, another, our strong alliance. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens to that golf alliance, but we do have a bunch of DP World Tour guys here, like the Huygaards.
Well, and let's not forget that we are in Scotland. We are in Europe. We're on a course similar to other courses that these DP guys are more used to playing. So you cannot ignore them this week just because they're a name you don't know. Take the stats for what they are worth. And speaking of stats, let's quickly get into our key stats, both of ours, so that we can get into our picks. Because as always, I'm going strokes gained putting, strokes gained approach. There's no surprise there. But one thing stands out to me this week about this course is that there's an extra par 3. There's 5 par 3s on this course this week. And because of that, I'm going to go strokes gained par 3. And then the other interesting, outside of a pretty standard one I've used before, I'm going to go par 4s. Strokes gained par 4s, 450 to 500 yards. But we're going to dip into a proximity range that I don't typically dip into. I know I'm about to bore Bud here, but we're going to go proximity of approach shots between 75 and 100 yards. And this is a very unique thing about this course is that these guys are able to get it down the fairway, get it into position where they're playing wedge shots in. So the guys that have this short game ability are guys that I'm going to want to target this week. So strokes gained putting, strokes gained par 3, strokes gained approach, proximity 75 to 100, and par 4s 450 to 500. Bud, hit me with your key stats.
See how much your par 4, 450 to 500 and whatever the hell else you said. I got some similar stats because I'm big on strokes gained putting, but I went strokes gained putting slow or average greens is what was my little tweak.
You're calling me a nerd, Jesus.
I was reading one of them other guys actually in my research, and I just saw that stick out. I think it's just because they can't get these things, these coastal greens, they can't get them as super slick as they can get some of these country club settings. So it's just rougher that way. And you're going to see a lot of these guys on these links courses taking putters from off the green, maybe sometimes as far as 30, 40, 50 yards out, just
the
because
Texas wedge.
The Texas wedge. So I had strokes gained putting on average greens, strokes gained ball striking, and strokes gained par 3 for the reason you said. The ball striking, again, I think it's it's approach plus, because you do
Mhm.
take the approach and off the tee. So it's ultimately how are you
Correct.
playing tee to green and who can steal shots on par threes. I think these guys are good enough on the fours and fives to kind of hang with each other. It's kind of, to use a tennis term, you can, as long as you can hold serve on the fours and fives, who's going to get a break here and there on the threes.
And it's worth mentioning one of the par threes this week is only roughly, depending on which the pin placement, but on average is playing 147. So a nice short par three this week. The other
Not
four,
short enough after the U.S. Open and after
well, not
watching the
short
U.S.
enough
Women's
after what we
Open.
saw. Yeah, not
Seeing
short
number
enough.
7 at Pebble.
But yeah, not short enough. But with the other par threes are around the 190 to 213 range, somewhere in between there for just about all the other four. So, but that
Still, for these
147
guys,
one should be interesting.
depending on the wind for these guys, this is like an 8. That's like an 8 iron, maybe a 9
Sure.
iron. It's crazy.
Yeah. So with both of our key stats in there, what does that lead us to? That leads me. Let's go from the numbers. We'll go salary base here.
All right.
Look, we mentioned it earlier in the show. Scotty Scheffler has just been on a tear, and it's not been talked enough. I feel like even enough, even though it has been talked about a lot. What he's doing is special right now. But 11,600 dollars and 17 to 18% ownership. I still just can't do it. I'm going to continue to not play Scotty Scheffler, even though he's playing great, because there's just not enough value and leverage for me to play him. And it's similar to why I'm not going to play Rory McIlroy 10-9 at 16%. No, thank you. Even though he has 5 straight top 10s, I just can't spend that money there this week.
I'm not spending any money in the double digits, but truth gun to my head, if I had to, it would probably be with Xander for the reasons you said. There's not enough leverage in the other two, and Xander is a little cheaper, and he's so freaking reliable. I mean, the guy I feel like he's on the cusp. We've seen him on the weekends late. And when you see a lot of somebody, that means that they're playing later in the day, and that means that they're playing really good. So X going to give it to you if you feel like you want to pony up the dough, but for me, might be a little too rich for my blood.
I love that. X gonna give it to you. I love that. He's got 5 straight top 25s, 2 of those being top 10 finishes in his last 5 starts. 18 out of 19 cuts this year. Xander Schauffele is definitely start. He's the only 10K guy starred in my lineup this week. We'll see if he makes it in, but I definitely like him. But that gets us down to the 9K range, because I'm gonna skip right over Patrick Cantlay. I just think he's ranking outside my top 10 of my model. He's 15% owned. He's 10,200. There's really nothing that's pulling me towards him. Do you have any thoughts on Cantlay, or can we move on to the 9K range?
No, none on Cantlay. I mean, it doesn't surprise me when he plays good, but I don't know. There's no reason for me to think he's a favorite.
Agreed. So here's the thing: 9K range. There's a lot of guys in the 9K range that pop up in my rankings high up. What it comes down to for me here is the leverage I can get on ownership. So for me, Matthew Fitzpatrick at 98. I'm willing to pay that slightly higher 14% ownership, mainly because we're over there in Scotland. I think he plays well on these link style courses. So I'll take Matthew Fitzpatrick for that reason there. Ricky Fowler, you want to talk about a hot player right now, 9,500 and still less projected ownership than Scotty Scheffler. If I'm going to play one of those two guys for how hot they are, I'm going to play Ricky Fowler right now. And then the guy who ranks out number 1 in my model this week, Wyndham Clark at 9,000, right around 15% ownership. I'm definitely playing me some Wyndham Clark this week.
Yeah, you're going to see Wyndham Clark in my lineup probably once or twice, because for the reasons you said, he's 7th in my model. And also, if I'm going to play 2 9K guys, it's a toss-up for me between Ricky and Tommy Fleetwood, and I might eat the chalk with Tommy just because he's first in my model. And again, just chalk's not always bad. You just have to understand where you are gonna swallow it, and try not to get too much down. And because my model did provide a little bit of leverage down low, I might be able to actually get those 2 9K guys. I haven't started messing around. Another one who's kind of spicy right there. I love Shane Lowry.
I know. I fucking knew it. I knew you were going to say it.
21st in my model, which is still high enough for me to give him a look. He's not that highly owned. I think he's 12, 13%, which, and this is his, people forget he won the Open a couple of years ago. Yep. And this is the Open Light. This is the tune-up. And this is when these guys, especially the European guys, get back home and they just start smacking it around and, putting all crazy and shit from 60 yards off the green.
Golf is different across the pond. There's something to be said for it. Just a little teaser here, by the way. I'm playing 3 9K guys this week against you. And they're all 3 the ones I just said.
And you're still going to lose.
Hell no. Let's hit the 8K range though, because we want to get as many picks into these viewers as we can. And obviously, because I'm playing 3 9K guys, my own personal lineup, I'm skipping the 8K range, but that doesn't mean there's guys in the 8K range that I don't like. I like Adam Scott at 8,100, around 12% ownership. I love him this week. This feels like his type of course. He does well in these European style link courses. And then Corey Connors at 8,000 at 10% ownership. He Other than missing the cut at the U.S. Open, T9 at the Travelers, T20 at the RBC Canadian. This feels like the type of place where he can rip it and grip it and make up the rest as he goes.
So I actually disagree with you on Adam Scott. He's 113th in my model, and he's
really
he is pretty popular.
Wow.
But Ludwig Aberg,
yeah,
he's only 83rd in my model, and I think that's just because he's new and there's not a lot of data out there on him yet, so he doesn't have the the numbers to really get up there.
Sure.
But I say keep an eye on him. I don't know if I'm going to play him. My model really tells me to play some Sam Burns, and Sam Burns is actually not a terrible leverage play.
I can see that
for 8,400. If there is a strokes gained, been here before though, Minwoo Lee at 8,900. Yes. He won in 2019. The first year was at the Renaissance Club. We've seen flashes of Woo throughout the year. And then also on social media, I saw he stuck around to watch a couple of. He was like watching like with the fans, and somebody asked him about it later, and he's like, "I don't have one of those faces yet." Where everybody was like running up to me.
He also made an appearance at a cricket match. I saw that on social media too. So
social media, we skipped right over the Wimbledon crowd. I love seeing all these guys in their suits showing up for Wimbledon.
It was great, but look, Minwoo Lee's not a bad shout here, because at under 10% ownership, 8,900, he has 2 straight top 10 finishes. That being at the Travelers and the U.S. Open, and 4 straight cuts made. You're not wrong on Minwoo Lee here. He's a sneaky good play this week, considering that nobody's really talking about him. I like that.
Yeah, and again, 117th in my model, but I might have to give that a look for all the reasons you just said. Hot hand right now.
Yep. Let's hit the 7K range, because this is where it gets interesting. Well, so here's what I love about the 7K range. Is pretty much everyone in the 7K range is at fantastic ownership leverage. Mm-hmm. I think there's only one guy. I'm just quickly scrolling through. There's only one guy in the 7K range, I think, that's in double-digit projected ownership. There's only one guy, and that guy he's right back up at the top. Let me get back up there. Ryan Fox at 11% ownership, 11 and 12%. And I get it, because I like Ryan Fox this week. He's got 4 straight cuts made. He ranks 8th in my model, 7,500, 11% owned. He's 7 out of 10 cuts made. Ryan Fox is a guy I like. I also like Brian Harman and Sahith Thagala. They're both playing great. Now, look, Brian Harman, quietly 2 straight top 10 finishes. Sneaky. We're not used to that out of Brian Harman. We can sit there and say Brian Harman can be a guy who we're confident will make the cut, but we don't typically see him inside the top 30. Two straight top 10s. Brian Harman's coming on hot right now. I'm going to ride that hot hand for under 7% ownership. That's only 7,600.
You ride it. You ride it hard. And I like that you already teed it up. See what I did there with the ownership in 7K. When you're down in this range, you don't necessarily need to check the ownership, although every once in a while something will pop out. And again, somebody who's just just coming off of a flash of greatness, will get everybody's attention to be in the 12-13% range.
Yeah, someone who jumps up from 6,200 to being 7,500 because they won the week before, something like that.
Yeah, that said, that you're pretty safe just kind of plucking 3 or 4 out of here. One that's 5th in my model, and honestly, if you go back to some of the finishes that he's had throughout the season, at these big events, he was 27th at the Players, 15th at the PGA Championship, 24th at the Memorial, 6th at the RBC Canadian, 39th US Open. So he's worth a look, and that's Eric Cole. He's been a pretty popular name.
Yeah.
And the pedigree is there, and I didn't even look at the ownership on him, but I'm going to trust the numbers.
Under 9%.
Yeah,
So
and I'm going to trust my
fantastic.
numbers with him being top, with him being fifth. He's where I'm looking first in the 7K range. You know me, I
Sure.
love Aaron Rye, and anytime I see him, I think that Tommy Two Gloves, this could be the week. So he might get that gut look from me. And then my next guy was actually in the 6K range, but
Oh, see, I'm sorry, Aaron Rye. Actually, there are. Uh, Aaron Rye is in the 7K range and over 10% ownership too. I was mistaken.
he's a popular guy. I mean, British guy. He's going to be another one that I think might get a Ryder Cup look
He
for.
he he he's going to hit
He's
about
trending.
14% ownership. It looks like, which is too
Um,
much for me in this range for how he ranks out for me.
he's what? Aaron Rye is what?
Right, he's going to hit 14% ownership. It looks like
Yeah, he might be worth it.
he's at 13.4 now, and I bet you he goes up a little bit more.
I bet you he doesn't. No, I'm just kidding. And then
Okay.
Brandon Wu is highly ranked for me. You know, I can't remember who's having the best week, him or Dylan. Every once in a while, they're both pretty
I
hot.
know. Yeah.
But to free up some cash up top, I might like me some Brandon Wu just to go kind of heavy in the 7K range. I like that
He's
picture
so
over your
hot.
shoulder. I just noticed it.
It's a beautiful picture of a wooded railroad scene. It's fantastic. I love this picture.
For those
Um,
listening in their car, it's a wooded railroad scene.
Yes, exactly. That should explain it all. Brandon Wu was a bit too hot and cold for me. And to sum it up, he's missed 4 out of 5 last cuts he's played in, but the one he made the cut at, he finished T9. So it's lightning in the bottle, big, high risk, high reward. I get it. Under 6% ownership. He does rank out decent at this course, so I get it. This could be a week that he pays off for you, but this is what I was talking about earlier when it comes to guys in the DP Tour, guys who are from Europe who played some of the courses. I'd rather dip into the 6K range to some guys who are underpriced for what
We can
they.
dip into the 6K range in a second, but here's why I'm
Okay.
taking Brandon Wu. There's
Yes,
one
hit me with that.
links. There is one links course that they play every single year. It's a links style course. We just saw it with the U.S. Women's Open, and he was runner up at the AT&T Pebble Beach this year. That's my kind of justification because I do agree that he is. That's why I was joking about him and Dylan. They take turns, having good weeks. Although Dylan doesn't really take weeks off. But I want to get down to the 6K range too, because there's another name from earlier this year that showed up in my model, and I'm probably just going to blindly give him some love because of that.
No, we might have the same. We might have the same name actually. Let me get down to him because actually it might not be the same name. A guy that I like down the 6K range here who finished T6 here last year, who is been playing in Europe. Jamie Donaldson. He's a guy that no one's going to really know. He's under 3% owned, 6,400. He doesn't really make the cuts on these PGA style courses, but he finished T6 here last year. He finished T42 at the PGA Championship last year. Jamie Donaldson feels like the type of guy that's going to go underappreciated this week, who could make some noise.
Jamie Donaldson?
Yes.
Are you just making names up now?
I'm
joking.
Names up. Come on.
All due respect to Jamie. No, Ben Griffin was the guy I was alluding to earlier.
Oh,
this
I
year.
do love me some Ben Griffin. I really do.
I had a little love.
He's one of my guys this year that I just keep going to.
Well, I just can't quit him either, but he's kind of like Brandon that we were just talking about, Mr. Wu, where he is a little hot and cold, and he has been cold recently.
Yes.
I'm hoping and praying that maybe a little change of venue brings about better. And I'm just trusting the numbers. I think he's 17th in my model, and at 6,600, that does free up a lot. And all I need him to do is actually make the cut. I don't need him to win. Ooh,
well, here's the thing that we should mention about link style courses. It opens up an opportunity for guys to get a little freer and a little more creative with their golf shots, because it is just naturally more open. It doesn't mean there's not hazards. It doesn't mean there's not obstacles in the way. It doesn't mean you can just swing it like crazy and not pay attention to where you want to put your shot. But when you get within that 75-yard range or so, it opens up a lot of creative opportunities between bump and runs, long putts from off the green, flop shots. Like you have all these creative shots where if there's a golfer who is just a skilled golfer who may not be able to ride the highs with some of these guys who are just the next level, this is the type of week where they can shine.
Well, there's one guy that I misread my own notes. I like chocolates. I misread my own notes, and he is in the 7K range. I thought he was at the top of the 6K range, and that's JT Poston. And it's for the
Yes,
reasons
he pops for me too. Yeah,
it's for the reasons that you just said, where the ground game is a link style game. Tiger won
yes,
the '06 Open, and he famously hit one driver all week.
yep,
If you as long as the wind isn't too terrible, like you said, you can get creative in a link style course. There's a great video of Seve Ballesteros hitting an approach shot. He won the Open a handful of times, but hitting an approach shot, and he's playing against Lee Trevino, and Lee Trevino is just so impressed that he pulled the shot off from where he was and the conditions and everything. I think he said touch of class is what he called it.
yeah.
And it is
Lee Trevino,
art.
still greatest golf cameo to this day, in my opinion. No doubt about
And
it.
Happy Gilmore.
Yes.
I like it. That's a good pull. No, but JT Poston, he's coming off of a top 10 after a couple of missed cuts.
Yeah.
But again, hopefully
He looked really good this last week at the John Deere. I know a weak field, but he looked good.
Last time I said that about a golfer, like, hey, they've been struggling, but they're coming off the top 10, was Justin Thomas a couple of weeks ago, and he was fucking
Oh my God,
barbecue
he's been
that week.
so up and down.
That though was, I want to say that was the Rocket Mortgage, and I think it was I was even
you mean the Rocket
saying,
City?
The Rocket City Classic. I was saying, and I was right, that these guys are already mentally over the pond. I mean, if you saw JT and Jordan and Ricky doing their thing at Wimbledon and going out with the girls and the social media stuff,
they had this trip planned.
Shit, that was, and those guys don't need that money, and as long as they make the start, it counts towards their season total. So there's going to be more to come, via the social networks with these picks this week. But I do agree that it's not a week to go top heavy, because I think that the big dogs are. I think you might actually see there's one more, and then we'll let everybody go. There's a great story about Tiger when he won the Players Championship the first time. He admitted later that he was literally using it as quote unquote warm up for the Masters, and I think that's which kills me. But no, he was saying he was practicing tee shots and different shapings of shots that he knew he was going to have to hit. And I think you're going to see that this week, where guys are going to use it as a tune-up. But at the end of the day, they're all competitors and they want to win.
Yeah, because the Open Championship's right around the corner. We'll be ready for that. So this makes a
lot of sense. I'm a big Open
Championship
Championship guy. I'm a big morning guy. I'll be up at the.
I was going to say my favorite part of that is how early you can just get up, go and watch, and it's fantastic. I love the Open Championship for that same exact reason.
Ryder Cup's going to be an early rise too.
Yes. And that's going to be interesting, too, because we'll see who's on the team. But that's going to do it for us this week on this episode of Divots and Pivots. To those of you watching on Rumble, I don't know what is going on with the title of this episode. The Season 2, Episode 27 is correct, but this is obviously not the AT&T Byron Nelson, so I'm not sure what happened there.
Get it the fuck together. Fire the intern.
No, because it's weird. YouTube and Facebook has the correct title, the Genesis Scottish Open, so I don't know what happened on Rumble, but whatever. This is the Genesis Scottish Open we talked today, but really what we talked about was the Senate, which is weird for us, but we talked the Senate the majority of the show, and that's okay, because I could have talked for another hour. I still have a ton of questions I want to talk about.
That
maybe
we'll
touch on it next week. Exactly. So we'll be following up on some of that information for sure. So catch us next week and every Tuesday here at 8 o'clock on Divots and Pivots, part of Fantasy Sports Network, kicking off Tea Time Tuesdays. The guys over at Plus Money Golf will be following us up here around 9:30, 10 o'clock. They always change the time, so I don't know which one it is tonight, but stick around. Be on the lookout for that on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Rumble. We love you guys. We'll see you next week, and enjoy yourself some golf over the pond.